Hello. Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to Axios House at South by Southwest. We're so pleased you're here. You can head to axios.com/events to see our full South by Southwest schedule. I'm Asher Price, Axios Austin reporter. Quick show of hands, who here is from Austin? Okay, great. Well, if you haven't yet, you can subscribe to our Axios Austin newsletter at axios.com/Austin. And Axios is now in more than 30 cities across the country. So whichever city you're from, you can go to axios.com/local and pick your city and subscribe to the Axios local newsletter. We're also celebrating the 5th anniversary of Axios Local this year and can't wait to continue growing our local journalism presence. Just a couple quick things I want to mention before we get on with the events here today. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your schedule to be here. We're going to host conversations with leaders shaping the future of technology, media, business, and culture right here where innovation takes center stage. You can follow our conversations and videos of these conversations at axios.com/events and on our newly created Axios Live YouTube channel. Okay, so let's get started. Today's conversations focus on how the landscape of who builds companies and who backs them is evolving. At South by Southwest, that shift is on full display as founders and investors rethink how capital can drive both growth and impact. So we're excited to host 2 conversations this afternoon with voices who are setting the bar high by investing for impact, including Serena Williams. So to help us dive in, please join me in welcoming Axios media correspondent Sara Fischer to the stage. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Asher. Hey, everyone. Welcome to South by Southwest Axios House. Round of applause. We are thrilled that you're joining us here in person, and we also want to thank everyone who's tuning in live on social media and on Axios.com. Please join in with the conversation using the hashtag AxiosLive on every platform, and sign up for Axios newsletters at axios.com/newsletters. We are thrilled today to be having a great conversation with some of the foremost leaders in profit and purpose-driven investing. The two of them do not need to be mutually exclusive. We want to talk about how Reckitt is leading a program in purpose-driven investment and helping underrepresented founders thrive through capital, partnership, and resources. And we are thrilled to welcome 3 incredible panelists to the stage. First up, we have Ryan Dullea, who is the Chief Category Growth Officer at Reckitt. Come on up, Ryan. We have Serena Williams, the Reckitt Catalyst Entrepreneur in Residence. And then lastly, we have Catherine Casey Nanda, who is the Acumen America co-founder and managing partner. Thank you, Catherine. One of the things I'm so excited about with this conversation is that when we talk about how we invest in underrepresented communities, so often we're talking about capital, but it's more than just capital. At Reckitt, I know it's a really big focus to provide resources, mentorship, even just back-end support. Ryan, can you just walk us through what are the ways that Reckitt is helping underrepresented founders that aren't just money?
Excellent. It's a great question. Let me maybe start by quickly telling people what Reckitt is, because my guess is maybe most in the room haven't heard that name before. It's the company behind brands that you'll see like Lysol, Mucinex, and Finish dish detergent here in the US. One of the things is we've done as a health and hygiene company across time is build brands over the course of 200 years. And in the way we believe we can give back to the communities and entrepreneurs around is not just through funding and visibility, it's actually through providing them with mentorship. So within our program, we actually have selected 240 of some of our best and brightest minds within Reckitt to be able to share how we've grown brands over the years, and not just around commercial or marketing side of things, but the whole gamut from supply chain to IT support to regulatory environments, because we play a lot in healthcare. So giving them the guidance that they need to manage their way through the system and make a success of what they're trying to do.
And then quickly, so Catalyst is something new. You launched in 2025, essentially pulling in resources to invest in health and hygiene specifically. And I know, Catherine, that's a big part of what you're doing right now. Why did you pick that category?
It's core to who we are as a company. So we've always been a health and hygiene company. You probably heard that from some of the brands I mentioned, like Lysol and Mucinex here in the U.S. We have brands like Dettol, Durex, Strepsils around the rest of the world. So it's core to our DNA and who we are and what we know. And I think, once again, Catalyst is a collective group. And I think that's where the power lies in these types of executions. It's not just about one entity. We have very big challenges in front of us, and we can't solve that alone. Acumen can't solve that alone. Serena can help, but probably can't solve that on her own as well. So it's that collective power of this group that comes together that we really feel can make a meaningful difference.
Serena, you have made a lot of investments in this sector. I think about with Serena Ventures, things like Noom, Masterclass. You're talking about health, hygiene, mentorship. Why is this a category that speaks to you?
We all need it. We all have health and hygiene that we use in our everyday lives. And that's one thing that we do. We also have another company, Teal, which works a lot with women hygiene, so women health. So I think it's super important for us to support things that we use every day. And these founders that are doing this in sectors, and in particular, some of the founders are doing it in areas that is just where they are, and they're making a difference in their own communities. And that's where we really see where there could be a lot of change happening, is having change in their own specific communities to them, whether that's getting help, for becoming a mom, or help with water, clean water, things that we've seen through the Catalyst program. So it's those things that are super, super important that sometimes VCs overlook, but it's probably one of the most single important things to invest in.
When I think about this category, I think it's powerful that you're investing in underrepresented investors and entrepreneurs who are trying to tackle the category, because I think with health especially, they were historically ignored for investment.
Exactly.
When you're trying to find entrepreneurs to invest in here, what are the things that you're looking at?
Well, we're looking at ways that, like I said, they're changing their community. And we're looking at things that they're doing specific to them that, might not be the next billion-dollar company, but it's really helping people survive, and people just on a human level. And I think sometimes in VC we forget that. And also there are lots of founders that are building that next billion-dollar company as well. But it's so important to have a mix of both. Have a mix of people that are really helping others, helping their communities, helping solve problems that's killing their children and that's killing their future. And I think that's something is one of the most basic things that we can do, is to help solve that.
Yes, and I think it's very humble that it's not just about building the next billion-dollar company. However, Serena's being very humble. More than a dozen of her portfolio companies are unicorns. So round of applause to Serena's very good eye. Catherine, when we think about purpose-driven investing, there is often a challenge that people like yourself, Ryan and Serena face, which is, how do you figure out who's authentic about it versus who is just leaning in to purpose-driven investing to be able to attract folks like yourself? What metric do you use to figure out who's really passionate about this?
Yeah, so we're at Acumen America, we're investing in companies that are solving big problems of poverty across the United States, have a huge portion of our portfolio in healthcare, over half of our companies. And we're looking for founders that are deeply passionate about solving problems in this space, and often see that through founders who have lived experience with the problems they're trying to solve. We were sitting with two founders earlier, one building a maternal health company based in her own experience with complicated pregnancies, another building a company that's a telephonic AI social worker in low-resource hospital settings. He was an ER trauma nurse who saw the limitations in that setting. So founders who have deep experience, who have tried to solve these problems from a number of different angles, are often the ones that build the most successful businesses in the space.
And just following up on that, if you have lived experience, clearly that is very helpful. You can relate to people. If you don't have lived experience, but it's still something you're really passionate about, how do you get into that field? What would you recommend someone does?
I mean, we see a lot of entrepreneurs who haven't necessarily lived the problem themselves, but they've spent their lives trying to tackle it from a bunch of different angles, from business, from the policy sector, in nonprofits. And so it's not just that you have to have lived the problem, but when we see entrepreneurs who have persistently gone after trying to solve a problem, whether through their own experience or through working on that problem over the course of their lifetimes. That's what we look for.
Ryan, these are not always shall I say, the ideas that you think are necessarily going to be the billion-dollar problem, to Serena's point, but they definitely could be huge businesses if people believe in the mission. However, that requires patience. How do you balance being an investor while also giving these ideas and founders enough time and room to grow so that you can actually see the mission through?
Yeah, look, it's a great question, and we're not investing here in order to necessarily create a significant return specifically out of these investments for Reckitt. What we're looking to do here is have an impact on the communities and the people in the areas where we deliver products and we operate. What we've found in our lives is when we invest in the communities around us, that community growth enables us to be a better company and deliver better results at the end of the day. So for us, it's not necessarily about an immediate return on those, so we have the patience. This is about us providing funding to people who we believe can have a real impact. And that's where I think this partnership comes in, and the understanding from the different entrepreneurs Serena's seen in her career to all the people that Acumen's worked with to what we understand in business. When you bring those three things together, you can really unlock these people who have an innate passion to really go do something great and break through.
One of the things that Catalyst is doing in getting entrepreneurs like Serena and Catherine to help mentor people is you're asking them for their time. And Serena, that is the most valuable, most precious thing that somebody has. Walk me through how you think about managing your time when you're mentoring underrepresented founders versus just sort of throwing capital at the problem.
Yeah, I think throwing capital is obviously great. I mean, everyone needs it, in particular founders. But what do you do after that capital? I mean, if you really want to see your capital returned in the best way, you have to somewhat be a mentor to them. You have to understand what their pain points are. You have to understand what is going to help them grow. You have to maybe help them, tell them how to build a team. And we do early stage investing. So early stage investing is 10-year process before you see really big results at times. And so we definitely have to have that patience. But while you have that patience, you have to grow your founder. You have to mentor them. And that's what we're doing at Catalyst. Is I'm on solely as a mentor, but at times if we see some fantastic deals and we want to believe in all of them, we also have an opportunity to do more, but giving them more than capital, because that's really what matters. It's really just about sometimes very few in between. When you are able to raise that money, how do we get our founders to go from a pre-seed to a seed? That is a huge problem that we're seeing in the industry. Is like, okay, I raised $1 million, but now I can't raise anymore. Now everyone that has already invested lost all their investment because they don't really know what the next steps are. And then if they are able to raise a seed round, it's like, how do they ever get to a Series A? So I think being a mentor and being able to provide some of that information of how to grow their business, how to have a successful business, how to build their business, and how to talk to how to talk to investors, and how to sort all kinds of things like that are super, super important and are just as important as the dollars.
One thing I see with entrepreneurs is they have fantastic ideas and great passion, but they're not good at telling their own story. And I think about you becoming, an entrepreneur and an investor after being an athlete. Like, you had to retell your story. How much does that factor into how you're mentoring people, how they talk about themselves and their own stories?
It's funny. My mentor actually told me I needed to be a better storyteller.
Who is your mentor?
I didn't say his name, but he's so fantastic. He's in the VC space, and when he was telling me how to tell my story, I thought, wow, you really have to be able to kind of, in a way, sell yourself. And I didn't understand how important storytelling actually was until I had a mentor. And I really feel good about having an opportunity to kind of pay it forward and tell other people the importance of storytelling, because that changed my trajectory as well. I'm also fundraising and doing all kinds of stuff as a VC. That's what you do. But it was so important to learn that. So when I do see founders, first of all, I want to make sure that their story is genuine. And, I want to make sure that there is some sort of connection between them and the problem that they're solving. I think that's very important. I also think if they don't have a lived experience, if their family member does or their uncle does, or I've heard founders where they were best friend or their roommate had a lived experience. I think just having something close by can help, or if you're just passionate about something. Like I'm passionate about what I'm doing here, and I think that also helps too. So, but it all definitely breaks down into storytelling, because at the end of the day, a founder has to be able, you have to be able to raise money in order to keep going. And that's the name of the game. So in order to do that, you have to sell yourself. You have to sell the story. You have to be a great storyteller. Also very true. Your story needs to be very, very true and authentic, but you have to be really good at it. I've had stories where I invested and believed in founders, but they didn't have a great storytell and they couldn't raise money. They had probably some of the best products I've to this day have seen, but they've never was able to raise money because they weren't able to kind of get that idea across to other people to believe in them, because they just were just dry, for lack of a better word. And so I always think of it as two ways. You can get someone else to tell your story, and you can also be in the room, because that's not the end of the world. If you can't tell a story, you can have someone else do it that's also passionate about it. Or else, it's very difficult to invest in that founder, because you still want to get your money back for your LPs. So for us, that's kind of how we think about it when we're looking at founders. And that's why I'd like to mentor the founders at Catalyst and just let them know that this is a huge part of what you're doing, is to have to be able to storytell.
Catherine, I think about investing in underrepresented founders. And I think they sometimes, when they think about their stories, they feel like they have to try so hard to make sure they're telling their stories, because in the past, there was just not an opportunity. If you could help us zoom out for a second on how far we've come and having those people be able to tell their stories, have the platform to do it, because that's what's ultimately attracting the investment. How far have we come?
Not far enough at all. We were talking earlier about how only 2% of venture capital goes to women founders today, and even less to founders of color. That's a stat that should shock all of us. And we're not doing much better as the years go on. At the same time, investors like Serena, like what we're trying to do, like Reckitt, are starting to change that and telling stories that are going to attract more capital and help underrepresented entrepreneurs get their stories out in the world. Serena and I share an investment in both of our portfolios, two underrepresented founders who got 300 no's before we said yes and invested in their company. They're now a $1 billion company that's telling a story about closing the wealth gap for families of color in the United States, and that as a model inspires other entrepreneurs, more capital. And to give one other stat, we've only invested about $25 million, which is, in the grand scheme of things, not that much money. But our 50 companies have gone on to raise another $1 billion in capital through that early stage investment. So if you have partnerships like this that take early bets on people who are overlooked, you can open up doors that will lead to different stories that will attract more capital and start to change things.
Can you walk me through, what does the network look like for people who are funding, raising money for underrepresented entrepreneurs? Is it a formal network, an informal network? How are we bringing these people together? Is it through things like Catalyst?
I do think it's through creative partnerships like this that bring together unexpected partners. Reckitt, as a global corporation, is doing really groundbreaking work, not only bringing their capital, but all of the human talent within the company. Serena's unique in the world to be able to amplify the stories of this work and the entrepreneurs that we're investing in. We're bringing a sort of unique ability to assess and back companies at the earliest stages. So I think it's creative partnerships like this that start to show a different way and start to draw more capital in, because our goal is these companies do become billion-dollar companies, and this work does scale to much greater heights.
We have a very attentive audience, people eager to learn from you. I would love to hear from each of you, what's one investment or a founder that you're super proud of, that you think your contribution not only helped them rise, but now what they're building is helping the world rise? I'll start with you, Ryan.
Yeah, look, it's a great one. And I'll talk about an investment we actually made not here in the US, since we've been running this program for about 5 years now around the rest of the world. It's actually a woman who had invented a water wheel So a lot of time in developing markets, you're walking down to the river or the source of water in order to bring that back. That can be up to 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, a mile that you're looking to go back and forth. That obviously creates a lot of challenges for the individuals bringing it back and forth. She solved the problem because she's lived it. Created a tub that basically was on a feeder, almost like think about a lawnmower walking down the yard, where you could then fill that drum with water and walk it back to your community. So that has step changed the amount and the access of water for that particular community there, and they're looking at spreading that now around to other areas.
I want to make sure we're supporting all of these entrepreneurs. How can we follow this person? What is their name of their company?
It's a great question. I'll need to come back to you on the specific name of the company because it's local. I think a lot of the stuff we have on Acumen's website through Catalyst and the work we're doing here, so it's probably the best place would be to go to Acumen's website, and I think on there there's a link to Catalyst program, which will focus on what we're doing here in the U.S. You'll see a lot of this great work on Reckitt's website as well, too.
Perfect. So make sure to look that up on Acumen and Reckitt. Serena?
Gosh, I'll go to a company in my portfolio. I would say, I don't know which one. I'll go with the baby one. There's a company called Rebel. So what happens is if you go like to a company like Target and buy a brand new thing for baby, you open it and you give it, or you give it to someone as a gift, and you open it. They open it and they're like, "Oh, I don't want the color. I don't like it, or I don't want it, or whatever," and they return it. It goes to the landfill. So our founder Emily is solving a really big problem of taking all the stuff that's out of Target's hands that has to put it, or not only Target, but all these companies like this. That was just an example that had to put it in a landfill, and now they are selling it at a lot less price on their platform, Rebel. But what's so interesting about this is I love how she's solving two problems. She's solving the landfill problem and she's helping young parents. And this was a category that, in particular in baby, that any open box, the law is, I guess, that you have to throw it away, which is shocking. And so now through her platform, you can buy, basically brand new products or just open box stuff for a lot less pricing. And so I'm really proud of that and what she's doing. Now she's moved on to other categories from baby to kitchen and so on and so on. So it's just watching her grow and being able to be a part of that growth has been really, really cool.
That is brilliant. And Catherine?
So one of our most recent investments through the Catalyst program is a founder called Kwame Liddell, who started a company called ThriveLink. And Kwame had worked in the healthcare setting, started as a janitor in a hospital, became a trauma nurse, became a healthcare lawyer, and started ThriveLink because he saw that people in a hospital setting needed connection to all kinds of social services that healthcare providers didn't have time to connect them to. So he created a telephonic AI social worker that you can call on your phone and have a conversation with. And a patient can share information that will help ThriveLink identify they're not enrolled in the right insurance, the heat's not on in their home, they can help connect it, they can connect them to food access, or all the things that might be impacting their ability to get and stay healthy. Kwame's now reached tens of thousands of families with that service and is growing quickly, and Reckitt and Serena are both leaning in to support him to grow to real scale and systems change.
It's amazing because all three of those examples come from three very different people solving very different problems, and yet they all have the same foundation in terms of prioritizing health and communities. Just a few of the takeaways, because this was an incredible conversation today. Serena really focusing on what are people doing that makes a change in their communities. I think that's a smart lens to be able to filter out, I'm sure, the thousands of people that come to you for investment. When I talked to Ryan about patient capital, you said that your return on investment is impact. I think that's what allows you to be very patient. Catherine said you really prioritize and you love to work with founders that have experience, lived experience. And I love, Serena, you backpacked on that saying, even if you don't have the lived experience, if you have a friend, or if you have a family member, or if it's just something you're really passionate about, that too is part of your lived experience. One of the biggest problems that early stage underrepresented founders face is getting from pre-seed to seed capital. And that's not something I would have thought about, but you can see why that big leap really, really is a challenge. We talked about how do you get to make that leap, and it really comes down to storytelling. How do you sell yourself? One of the biggest things that Catalyst and Reckitt provide people is the opportunity opportunity to get mentored, and Serena said she's doing a lot with helping people with their storytelling. Only 2% of venture capital funding goes to women funders right now, founders. So that's an extraordinary stat, and we hope that by the time next year, this will be doubled at least. And then lastly, 3 businesses that you all should go home and follow from Ryan. Take a look at the Acumen website and the Reckitt website to take a look at the water wheel reinvented. Serena talking about Rebel, the baby company, now expanding to other goods. And lastly, Catherine with ThriveLink, tackling problems with financial services and health. A round of applause to our incredible panel. And thank you all so much for being here. And before we go, we want to make sure that you just continue to follow the conversation. The event is not over. I'm going to kick it off to my colleagues right now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Mike Allen, co-founder of Axios. Thank you so much for coming to South by. Welcome to Axios House, South by. And Sara Fischer at the end, I call that her party trick, when she's able to say back everything that was said while she's moderating. It's very humbling. I just sent her a text. Very difficult to do. So excited to be here at South by. I've always loved South by because it's winners on the rise, people on the rise, and everyone here is working on something that they're excited about or they're passionate about, which we just love. And Sara Fischer was just telling me something that she likes about it is that people aren't in suits and ties. It's a little more comfortable setting. And you know it's going to be a good event when in the back there's a huge bar. So I look forward to joining you in the bar. Before we introduce our fascinating next guest, and you know that it's going to be a fun event when you're having a good time in the green room, and we had a great time backstage with our next amazing guest. But I want to pause and thank Axios Local. And you heard Asher Nicole was here earlier from Axios Austin, part of the original crew of Axios Local, which this year hit 5 years. So Axios is 9 years, Axios Local is 5 years. And we think of Axios Local as the smart friend in your pocket, somebody who can help you navigate your life and work. Axios Austin is superior at it. So I appreciate them for being our hosts here. And Axios Live, our events colleagues, tomorrow, Monday morning, they will start working on South by Southwest 2027. So they put months into making this amazing, and we're grateful to them and grateful to the partners. Let's hear it for Axios Live. And we're grateful to our partners who have made these conversations possible. On behalf of my co-founder, Jim Vandehei, and Roy Schwartz, welcome to our friends around the world. Wish you were here in Austin, but we will have a burnt orange drink for you. For our next conversation, we're continuing the entrepreneurship theme. We're welcoming a leader who's made it her life's work to advance women and girls and who is investing big in the next generation of women entrepreneurs. Tiffany Dufu is president of the Tory Burch Foundation, which empowers women entrepreneurs by providing access to capital, education, and community. And Tory Burch, the founder, has been passionate about helping the next generation of entrepreneurs, including us. Very encouraging about the people who's coming next. Tiffany Dufu is author of the best-selling book, Drop the Ball, and she was just telling me, here at South by, I always like to ask people, what are they doing for the first time at South by? She, for the first time, is going to become a country music fan. Tiffany Dufu, welcome to Axios. Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is the seat that Serena Williams just sat in.
We everybody got a picture. That's good. That is good.
And now I'm sitting in it. Life goals. I didn't even have this on my bucket list. I love Axios. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Axios means worthy in Greek, and will always work hard for you. And I really enjoyed when Serena and her colleagues were talking about the idea of founders who lived a problem. And that's how Axios came to be, is we wanted to make people smarter, faster about what matters. And you work with entrepreneurs of all kinds, and an event like this, so often a question that you get asked at an event like this, and some people don't like it, they brush it off, some people are offended by it, but you lean into it. Tiffany Dufu, what do you do?
My life's work is advancing women and girls.
Boom.
That's what I do. That's why I wake up every morning.
When I said somebody who actually likes the question, what do you do? And this is a first. I've been privileged to interview thousands of fascinating people in my time as a journalist. This is the first time ever that someone said to me, I know what's going to be on my tombstone.
I do. You're a very good researcher. I already know what's on my tombstone. It's going to say, she got to as many women as she could. And every day I'm just trying to project manage my life backward from there. And I say that not because everyone's life's work should be advancing women and girls, but because when you are in a moment like ours of immense uncertainty, when you've got a lot of emails, a lot of Slack messages, a lot of text messages, you've got meetings, you've got errands, you've got people who you're responsible for, or four-legged people who you're responsible for, life is just a lot simpler when you know why you're here and when you're grounded in your purpose. And if there's one thing we need right now more than ever, it's leadership that's grounded.
And you were talking about these times, and you are an optimist, and you honestly believe that the next generation can do better than us. How is entrepreneurship a route to that?
It's a huge route. This year, we're celebrating 250 years of our nation's history. And in that time, there are only a few levers that individuals have pulled in order to achieve economic mobility and sustainability and opportunity, which is fundamental to the promise of this country. One is wealth transfer, which very few people had access to. Another is home ownership, which is becoming more and more elusive. There's also retirement savings. The last lever that we've pulled time and time again is entrepreneurship. And it's the one lever for which the barriers to entry have gotten lower. I know this for a fact because I have 2 English degrees and I'm a tech entrepreneur before I was founded before I came to the Tory Burch Foundation. And I think it's really important for us to position entrepreneurship as a social good, as a public good, for us to demystify it. And one of the things that I love about our work at the Tory Burch Foundation is that we're opening the aperture for what entrepreneurship can look like. We just listened to an amazing panel that was talking about entrepreneurship in a traditional way, in a very popular way, which is to talk about entrepreneurs who are seeking venture capital and who are raising usually tech-enabled, very fast-growing startups. At the foundation, we're actually looking for something different. We're focused on investing and supporting entrepreneurs that are building businesses that last. It means that they may not have necessarily had early access to venture capital or capital at all. It means that their priority is capitalizing their business through, check this out, revenue from consumers. It means that they're obsessed with making sure that they're solving a problem for someone, some company, and that they've got an incredible product or service. And I have to say that when I was invited in 2018 to become a volunteer, to be an advisor for the Tory Burch Foundation Fellows Program, be careful what you volunteer for, okay? I was really impressed because at the time, I was one of those venture-backed founders who was building a fast-growing company. And one of the differences that I felt viscerally in helping and supporting the entrepreneurs that the foundation was supporting and myself was that I was always pulled in two different directions as I was building my company. I had the consumer, but I was also always very focused on the future investor and what they would need and the milestones I would hit in order to raise the next round. And I have to be honest with you, it was kind of distracting. And I loved the idea that the entrepreneurs that I was supporting, even though their companies wouldn't grow as fast, they were sustainable companies, and these entrepreneurs were able to focus on what I think is the most important thing, which is solving that problem, meeting the needs of the consumer, and really building for them. And so I'm not only bullish on entrepreneurship, I'm bullish on women's entrepreneurship, and also on entrepreneurs that sometimes are overlooked, but are building incredible companies that will make a difference for their families, for their communities, and for our nation.
Tiffany, you talked about barriers coming down. Is part of that AI? You really know the tech world, and something I say to young people in my life is that some of the next great organizations, some of the next great fortunes, some of the next great cures, some of the great discoveries will come from a laptop with tools that are basically free.
That's right. So you can get direct access to markets and consumers through social. You can use technology in order to build. There's so many infrastructure and costs that were associated with running a business, starting a business, that just don't exist today.
Something as simple as building a website.
Exactly, that don't exist today. You don't have to hire someone to do all of these things. And so that's why the barriers have become even lower. But the fundamentals of business are still there. If you have a solution to a problem that someone really, really needs solved, the person doesn't care so much who the person is that's solving their problem, and so you have an opportunity.
Tiffany, you talk about community as an accelerant.
Community is everything.
And what do you mean by community?
I mean a web of people that are coming together and convening for some kind of shared purpose. And in our case, if we're talking about entrepreneurs, I actually believe the most important resource that an entrepreneur can have is actually not the investor, it's the other founders, it's the other entrepreneurs that are in their ecosystem. When I was building, almost every investor, certainly the talent, the solutions that I needed, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning when I was in tears, 2 a.m. when I was in tears, all of them came from other entrepreneurs. And at the foundation, we're very focused on making sure that that community, that ecosystem is very strong, that you basically have a sounding board at all times, that you have access to resources. This is very important because entrepreneurship, the landscape changes very quickly. It's kind of like parenting. I have a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old. If this gentleman right here who has an 8-month-old asked me for advice, I'd be like, hell, I don't know. It's been a very long time since I had an 8-month-old.
But it worked.
Yes, but entrepreneurship is like that. You really need to convene with people who just went through the same thing that you went through. And so we're very focused on creating pathways that are focused on where an entrepreneur is in the life cycle of their business, making sure that they have access to people who are going through the same thing that they're going through, and also people that are one step above that can give them the tips and the tools.
In addition to being an entrepreneur yourself, in addition to being Madam President, which people have been waiting for a long time, you're a best-selling author. Drop the Ball, Achieving More by Doing Less. And we were kibitzing backstage, like we're kindred spirits on this because at Axios, we're big on simplify. How can we be efficient? How can we delete? What can we cut out of our life and workflow? So I'd love if you have a couple pro tips from Drop the Ball.
First of all, I wrote a book called Drop the Ball because I used to be someone who was terrified of ever dropping a ball. Okay, I used to think that that was a terrible thing to do. It meant that you were irresponsible, you were failing to take timely action, you were going to disappoint, in my case, large populations of people, like all women, all black people. They're not going to get another black person a job if you mess this up. So I had what I call a Tiffany's epiphany. Some people call them aha moments, in which I had an experience where I had to drop balls left and right. For me, it was the birth of my first child. And I couldn't keep up, but all of the things that I was terrified were going to happen if I ever dropped a ball, none of them materialized. No one told me they didn't love me anymore. I didn't get fired from my job. No one came in to read me my Miranda rights because I had let the alternate side parking tickets that are very annoying in New York City pile up. And so I started to reappropriate this term, drop the ball. So for me, dropping the ball means that we've let go of these unrealistic expectations about having to be everything to everyone, do everything, and that we really hone in and focus on what matters most to us, separate and apart from what matters to the people that you grew up with, your in-laws, whoever else, that you get really clear about your highest and best use in really accelerating what matters most to you, as opposed to just saying yes to everything that comes over the fence. And then finally, figuring out, how do you engage other people in your life? How do you get the help that you need in order to be effective and efficient? But I would say that the most important part of that equation is making sure that you're surrounding yourself with people who believe in your passion, in your project, in your business, trying to get the haters out, and asking them to hold you accountable for all of your next steps. And certainly as an entrepreneur, or as anyone who's building, that's the most important thing that you can do.
One of the great entrepreneurs in America, period, is Tory Burch, who also is very intentional. Tory's very intentional about the entrepreneurs coming behind. The Tory Burch Foundation is pledged to add $1 billion to the economy through women entrepreneurs by 2030. Tiffany, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about Tory herself as an entrepreneur and what she does for the women who are coming next, and the most important thing you want people to know about the Tory Burch Foundation.
I think the most important thing, and I have so much respect for Tory, is that she was one of those entrepreneurs who had a product, and she went out and she told her friends about it, and they liked it, and people lined up to buy the product.
She had taste.
Yes, and she grew that into a multi-billion-dollar global brand. But most importantly, she did that in conjunction with purpose. We've come full circle to building a business that she also wanted to ensure was giving back to society. And in her case, she wants to provide more opportunity and more access for more women entrepreneurs. And so I love that some of the proceeds of the business go back to the foundation. By the way, if you've ever bought a Riva Ballet flat or a bag or any ready-to-wear, know that you supported women entrepreneurs through that purchase. And we're very committed to ensuring not just that women entrepreneurs are getting what they need, but that they're actually growing their businesses. 91% of the entrepreneurs that we support are still in business after a decade of doing this work. It's totally inverse from a VC portfolio. And a third of them are now growing multi-million-dollar businesses. This is after coming to us with as little as $75,000, $100,000 in revenue. So there's a formula. We're unlocking it, and we're scaling the work for this next generation.
So if a young aspiring entrepreneur in this audience here at Axios House in Austin, or around the world on the live stream, if a young entrepreneur, a person who's dreaming of starting a business, if they said, what would Tory do? What would the answer be?
Don't ask what Tory would do. Look inside yourself. Find your own gut, your own voice, and follow it. Follow it furiously, and we're here to support you every step of the way.
Tiffany, we always finish Axios events and Axios newsletters with one fun thing. 14 days from today, 2 weeks from today, is March 27th. What's that?
That's my birthday.
So we're big on birthdays, and what I love about you and something useful for our audience is you make an occasion of your birthday as a way of making about community. Tell us about doing birthdays big and why.
I wasn't expecting this. I love my birthday. I always go, much to my family's chagrin, on a girls' trip for my birthday. And I think it's really important that all people, but especially really busy women who are hustling and building companies and supporting other people and caregiving for other people, that we take time to invest in ourselves. So I always go on a girls' trip for my birthday.
And the takeaway for us, the why it matters of that, is prioritizing time. Tell us the takeaway of your birthday's fun, but the prioritizing time is something lasting.
Well, absolutely, because at the end of the day, if you're someone who wants to create impact in the world, you're going to be really busy. There's going to be a lot of demands on your time. It's going to be overwhelming. It's going to be exhausting, especially in the moment that we're in right now. So if you don't refuel your tank with the right energy and the right people and the right playlist, and for some people, the right cocktail, in order to refuel, we're not going to be able to make the world a better place. So I just encourage you to prioritize yourself. And certainly we have to model that for other people. And I try to do a good job of doing that.
Okay, Elise is going to kill me, but as a lawyer would say, you opened the door. You mentioned your playlist. You are a human Shazam. Tell us about your soundtrack and why it matters.
I love music. It's very motivating to me. And it's just a release. In fact, at the end of every day, I've got my Beats headset in my room, in my hotel room right now. And at the very end of the day, I'm going to be putting on Shakira or Beyonce or Janet or somebody and dancing my heart out. I think that all of us, and by the way, I've been doing this since I was a little girl. Whatever you did when you were a kid to release is probably the same thing that you should be doing right now. And so I hope for each one of you, if there's one takeaway, just take one moment today, take a deep breath, and think about what you'll do in order to refuel yourself.
On behalf of my fellow entrepreneurs, Jim Van High and Roy Schwartz, it means so much to us that you were here at Axios House, South by Southwest in Austin, that you joined Axios on the live stream. We appreciate our partners, Axios Live, Axios Local, who made these conversations possible. And we're going to see you in the bar very shortly. Tiffany Dufu, thanks for a fantastic conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to Axios House. See you in the bar.